is Yvonne Rich, and I'm 94 years old, and I live in Altadena, California, and this is the story of some of the highlights of my life. My mother is Norwegian, 100%. My father, Irish and Welsh, and actually from Nebraska, and my mother was born in Thief River Falls, Minnesota. When my sister was born, I have one sister, and my sister was born at home, and a cousin came to visit, and she said, "You got this beautiful baby girl and you're still calling her Jack?" And my mother said, "Well, we were expecting a boy, so you name her." So she named my sister Zella, Z-E-L-L-A. Well, anyway, then I came along and they expected a boy. Mother was in the hospital then, and the woman in this room with her said, "I can't wait to get home to my little Yvonne." My mother said, "Your little what?" She said, "That's my daughter's name." And then, of course, when I came and I was a girl, Mother named me Yvonne. So that's where I got that name. Came to California when I was 17. They waited till I graduated from high school. And I graduated from high school with the highest average ever made in the history of the school. So I was valedictorian. Well, naturally it was not hundreds of students. It was, I think there were 11 or 12. It wasn't such a big deal, but they waited till I graduated before we moved to California because my mother, and there's a story too. My uncle, Dr. Oliver Peterson, had an office at 3rd and Ardmore in the Wilshire district. Yeah. And in order to get to school, I had to walk down Ardmore to 6th to get the streetcar to go to downtown LA. Now, this is something. One morning, now mind you, I'm 17 years old. This man is walking toward me wearing an overcoat. And as it turned out, that is all he was wearing. And so he flashed me, and I was so scared. As a matter of fact, it was the first time I had ever seen what a man looked like in that area. I never saw my daddy. He was a very proper man. And anyway, I was so scared when I saw what he had and what he wasn't wearing that I turned around and ran as fast as I could. And it was scary. Well, then another time I was walking over to Woodbury when we found an apartment over on Boylston, and I was going to meet a fellow student of mine and go to the movies. And I was early, so I was walking slowly. And I don't know if you know where Boylston Street is, downtown LA. Well, anyway, somebody was walking behind me, and I thought, well, I'm not in a hurry, I'll just walk a little slower, and then the footsteps were slower. So then I got a little concerned. I walked faster, and the footsteps came faster. So finally I thought, oh, it's just some kid from school just playing a joke on me. So I turned my head around, and it just shows how important timing is. If I had turned faster, I would have been smashed with this baseball bat in my face. If I turned slower, I might have been just unconscious. As it turned out, it was like a baseball bat that came down on the back of my head, and I fell to the sidewalk. I was wearing a dress. I went through the arms of my dress, elbows of my dress, and through the knees of my stockings, and screamed. And I screamed just as loud as I could. And I could scream really loud because in the senior class play, the heroine was supposed to scream and she couldn't scream at all. So I was backstage, and when it was time, I screamed very loud. Well, nobody came to help me or rescue me, but I scared the man, and he ran off. And so I gathered myself up and got over to school and just went to the ladies' room and found a student. I said, please go up and tell Elaine that Yvonne can't go to the movies with her. And I called a cab and went home. And I told my sister what happened, but I said, don't tell Mother, because if you tell her, she'll never let me out of the house again. So that was a secret we kept. We never did tell my mother. And I have a big lump on the back of my head. And years later, I did go to a cancer specialist to be sure there wasn't something growing in there. He said, you just had a concussion, and then the bone just grew around over it. And even now when I get my hair done, I have to be careful in the shampoo bowl because it hurts if you press on it. So I wouldn't look good bald because I got a big lump. I was my daddy's little boy. You know, I told you they wanted boys. So I was a tomboy. I mean, he bought me my first horse, a Montana Bronco. And I would go to the barber shop with him when he got his hair cut. I had a boyish bob. When I started Woodbury, and I didn't wear skirts and dresses, I wore pants. And had short hair, and I didn't wear any makeup. So there was talk, I didn't understand it at the time, but that I was a transfer from the Hollywood school. Like maybe I was... Anyway, as I continued my work in school, gradually, I don't know, I became more like a girl. I was rushed for the sorority, Eta Upsilon Gamma, and I got in, and gradually, I guess, became a little more feminine. And as far as dating is concerned, I joined a boys' riding troupe, riding horses, and my mother said that was fine because she said there's safety in numbers. If you're going to be out with 7 or 8 boys, you'll all be competing, and they'll be sure you're safe. It was kind of interesting. And I don't remember the first time I dated. I remember one of my fellow students was Japanese, and then of course we had Pearl Harbor, and the Japanese now we're sending them all to relocation camps or something, and his name was Jimmy Shimatsu. I always wondered what happened to him. I used to be a really good dancer, jitterbug, and I dated the jitterbug champion of Los Angeles County, and we cleared the floor at this, it's a hotel and a restaurant on Wilshire Boulevard. He would put me on one hip and then on the other hip and then under his legs and over the top. I mean, it was fun. I thought I was pretty good. Well, he was bitter, of course, but he taught me all of this. Oh, that was kind of fun. My goal was to become the best private secretary in the world. That's what I wanted to be. So I studied typing and shorthand and Greg shorthand, and I could type 100 words a minute, and my shorthand was excellent as well. So even while I was in school, I got a job working part-time for 40 cents an hour for a man who was German, Jewish, and what he would do, 2 things. One, I had to enter the interest or the dividends on all of his stock, his investment, and then write letters in German to his relatives in Germany, and he would dictate and spell each word.
Wow.
It was an interesting job. He was he was pretty famous. He was the father of a motion picture director who was married to an actress. You know, someplace perhaps in my notes I might have their names, but I can't remember them now. Well, and then as a secretary, I became better and better. I got a job working for Clark and Ryle. They were realtors in the subway terminal building. And George Ryle was very, very complimentary. He said, "You are the best secretary." He said, "I wish I could pay you more. You should be making," and he mentioned a figure. And so I heard about a job at the FBI, and that's what the starting salary was. So I applied, and one day this FBI agent, who apparently was investigating me, came into the office and had a meeting with Mr. Ryle, my boss, came back to the office and said, "I've interviewed somebody I know we're going to hire, but hands off, she's mine." And he'd only just seen me, but anyway, that was how that went. And I did end up dating him, never married him. I did marry an FBI agent, though, at some point, but that didn't last. FBI had, as you know, agents all over, just like the Russians had spies here. We had, I guess you call them spies, in other countries. And this man went undercover in Argentina, Rio de Janeiro. No, that's Brazil. Right, in Brazil. And it was very interesting because you had to have a cover story. Well, he was from Philadelphia. He was working blah, 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 whatever. All his clothes had to be with Philadelphia tags on them, or anyway, everything had to fit the story that you were telling people. And here's something interesting. We were investigating in Los Angeles. I was working for the FBI Los Angeles Field Division, which was at 5th and Spring Street, and we were investigating these spies, I'll call them, who were working in the Los Angeles area. And of course, as a secretary, I got to take dictation about all this. And I knew the names of all of them. And I know you weren't supposed to do this, but they said that they often met at the record shop on Broadway and 5th, I think it was. And so I'd go over there ostensibly to buy a record and just look all around and see if I could see any of these people. Well, again, and life has so many strange coincidences. I left the FBI and got a job in a law office at 7th and Spring, and they made Spring Street a one-way street going south at some point. And I'm living out in the San Fernando Valley, out in a place where my dad had bought a house and built a house. And I'm coming to work, going to 7th and Spring, and right by the federal building and the prison, the jail, I'm the first one stopped by this policeman, while these people in leg irons were led across from the jail to the courthouse for trial. All of my 10 men. I could have named all their names, and what a coincidence that I would see them. I would be the first car stopped. And I can picture that in my mind right now, seeing them. They're going to get their comeuppance, their justice is going to prevail. It was amazing.
Wow.
There was another incident on Spring Street. Oh, I was dating a man in the Air Force. This is when I'm working in this law office at 7th and Spring. And I was parking just below 7th, between 7th and 8th. And these are the days when there were streetcars. And we came across, my date and I had gone to the Biltmore Theater, and we'd walked over, we were walking down Spring to the parking lot, and I said, looks like there's somebody in my car. And I walked over and started to put my foot, I'll tell you how long ago it was, on the running board, and the car just shot back out. I mean, I almost fell back over. I didn't, but it happened so fast. And just as fast as they backed out and went out the other entrance on Main Street, the parking lot went through from one block to another and turned right, and just that fast another car, police car, came out and followed them and got right in front of them at the safety zone. I don't know if you remember, there used to be safety zone, and cut the car off. He said it was the fastest stolen car recovery in LA police history. Glamour magazine used to say right on the cover, the magazine for the girl with a job. Okay, so to qualify, you had to live either in the United States or Canada and be making $75 a week or less in order to be eligible. Well, 11,000 young women joined the contest, entered the contest. And one day I'm sitting at my desk at 7th and Spring in this law office, and the phone rang and said, "This is Mary Campbell. I'm the contest editor for Glamour, and we've got the voting down to 16 finalists. Can you come to New York for final judging?" "Well, could you hold on just a minute? I have to go ask my boss." So I went in and asked Mr. McLaughlin. I said, "Can I go to New York next week?" He said, "Well, tell him yes, and then come back and tell me what you've gotten yourself into now." So anyway, I told her yes, and also wondered, where am I going to get enough money to fly to New York and come home? And she said, "Oh, incidentally, we're wiring you the, I don't know, $300 or $400, whatever it was. And you're to go directly to the Waldorf Astoria and then come to Condé Nast for a trip, a visit, and then we're going to lunch and final judging." And so that's what happened. I flew to New York.
What year was this?
1950. And I was 30 years old, and I was married but getting a divorce from that FBI agent. I went to New York. We did the tour of Condé Nast, and that was kind of interesting too, because this lady that was conducting the tour said, "Oh, this is," and he's the editor of Condé Nast. Obviously he's one of the judges, but at the time you didn't know that. But "Oh, he's here, come on in and meet him." And I think part of the judging was how you acknowledge an introduction. Did you step up and put your hand out and smile and that kind of thing? And also, what did you wear? I wore a navy blue suit. Now, mind you, this is years ago. White gloves and a hat with a navy blue velvet band and navy blue pumps, and of course stockings. And anyway, at the luncheon, it was kind of like musical chairs. Somebody was sitting next to you and asking you questions, and then they'd get up and go on to the next one. And I felt quite comfortable with the photographer. There was a photographer there, because he was from Los Angeles, and so we had a nice conversation, but I did find out he was one of the judges too. But, you try to relax and answer all the questions, and then you have your lunch and you fly home. Nobody tells you who won or who lost. And of course, you're sitting there, there's 16 of us. Wonder if I could get rid of her. Wonder if I could eliminate her, you know. But anyway, so the following Friday, it's about 4 something, and I know they were going to let us know who won, who the top 10. I could mind you, this is 10 girls with taste. But I thought New York is all closed up already, so I guess I didn't win anything. So, and the phone rang, and this woman said, "This is Mary Campbell. Are you sitting down?" And I said, "Yes." And she says, "Well, hang on to your chair because you won." I said, "You mean I'm one of the 10? And she said, "No, you're the top of the 10. You're going to Europe with a chaperone and a photographer, and you have to come back for fitting and photographing of the prize wardrobe. And then you'll be leaving for Europe with the travel editor, who will be your chaperone, and your photographer, who's coming from London." You know, I could hardly speak. I was so excited. Anyway, so that's how that all happened. And you know, my trip to New York was incredible with all the clothes. None of the hats fit me. By then I had a big head. I always say, if you're going to have your picture taken, wear white gloves and put them there. See how small it makes your waistline?
Yeah.
Good taste is a matter of feeling as well as knowledge. It is having a sense of values, knowing that it is better to be kind than to be correct. I believe that a good heart is the true source of good taste.
Beautiful.
And I honestly think that is one thing that helped me win the contest. Because I can remember in the elevator listening to 2 people behind me, 2 of these women from the magazine, saying, "Which is the one that had the good definition of good taste?" So, and of course you always think they're talking about you. I met Orson Welles.
Ah.
I had a private audience with Pope Pius XII at his summer palace, Castel Gandolfo. After my audience, I had lunch with Prince Pacelli, the Pope's nephew, at the golf club. And he sort of offhandedly said, "Okay, how did it go with my uncle this morning?" And I said, "You know, I'm not Catholic."
Is that arranged through the whole glamour contest?
And as a matter of fact, no. While we're still in Los Angeles in my law office, or the law office where I was working, this Jesuit priest came in to the reception room. I'm taking dictation. The other girl in the reception room is Rita, and Rita is a Catholic. And he said, "I'm here to visit my cousin." Mr. McLaughlin was his cousin. Mr. McLaughlin was a Catholic. And this priest said, "I'm on my way from Rome to the Philippines, and I just wanted to stop in and visit." And then Rita said, "Oh, the other girl, the other secretary, is going to go to Rome, I don't know, in July or whatever." And he said, "Would she like an audience with the Pope?" And he said, or she said, "She's not a Catholic." He said, "That isn't what I asked you. Would she like an audience with the Pope?" At this point, I'm opening the door and coming out of dictation. I said, "She'd love an audience with the Pope." So when we got to Rome...
Did you know it was you?
Pardon me?
Did you know she was talking about you?
Yes. So a uniformed messenger from the Vatican came to the hotel with my invitation, and I asked the concierge, "What should I wear?" And he said, "Well, no makeup, and what else did he say? Something very conservative." And so my chaperone, whose name was Jane, said, Well, I had an audience with the Pope at St. Paul's, St. Peter's, whatever, Cathedral. Well, there, you're lucky if you even see him because there's thousands of people and he's up in the front. Well, I'm going to meet him personally, so anyway. She said something about be sure to wear your gloves or something like that. Well, when you realize what's going to happen, you do not take the Pope's hand with a gloved hand of your own. So anyway, I didn't have a glove on. But I took his hand and you kiss the ring, the symbol of papal power, and you genuflect. Well, anyway, I did that. But I said to the nephew, I said, I did something wrong. I never dropped his hand. And he never took his hand away. And so Prince Bocelli said, well, it isn't every American schoolgirl, I wasn't a schoolgirl, I was 30 years old, can say today I held hands with the Pope. So, of course, I came back to LA, wrote an article, today I held hands with the Pope, submitted it to Reader's Digest, and of course I got a reject slip. But I think it's probably around in a box somewhere in this house. If I resubmitted it now, it wouldn't be considered as, anti-religious or sacrilegious, whatever you want to call it. But anyway, that was quite an amazing experience. I met Orson Welles.
Huh?
He was my seatmate on a flight from Venice back to Rome. And I have to say, I didn't know who he was, but he smelled of garlic, I can remember that. And when we got to Rome, to the airport, our limousine was waiting for us, Pat and whatever, I can't think of the name of the photographer at the moment. Oh, Pat and Jane. Anyway, and so I said, would you like a ride into Rome? Oh, I'd love that. So then I introduced him to them and we drove to Rome, and then they invited him to come up to our suite and have a glass of wine or a drink, and he accepted. So that was kind of an interesting little sidelight. We ate and drank at some of the best restaurants in Europe. And I had never been used to, in my home, well, my daddy drank a little too much, and my mother was absolutely, totally against drinking at all. You know, we never had wine with dinner, and at my house I never even heard of such a thing. So, being the recipient of great food with great wine for a whole month with these people I was with, it just opened a whole new world for me. And that is what affected my ending up as a wine educator, because I came home thinking, wine is wonderful and I don't know a thing about it. So I started taking classes, I started going to wineries, I started going to tastings, and then a friend of mine said, why don't you join the Society of Wine Educators? And so I found out how you get into that, and then I studied, paid the fee, and took the test to become a certified wine educator with the Society of Wine Educators, which is an international organization. And this area that we're sitting in right now was just wasted space under the house. The house is like 2.5 stories high. But this was just nothing. Just dirt on the floor and nothing. So when I came back, I said, and now I'm married, and my husband is the unfaithful one, and he's he seems to pay more attention to his family and his household when he's got a project going. So I said, why don't we dig a wine cellar? Well, he had a bad back, so he couldn't help. But my daughter Sunny and her then boyfriend, and she's been married now for 20-some years, not to him, but so that had to be almost 25 years ago, we started digging down here with pickaxes, shovels, and wheelbarrows. And this whole wall was wide open. And where you parked your car today, there was a big truck. And he charged me by the ton to move the dirt. 10.5 tons of dirt we moved from here. And...
You guys did that?
Pardon me?
You did it, the three of you?
The three of us. And then, of course, you have to build it out. You have to have shelves, you have to have a floor, and you end up with a second mortgage. So then my husband said, well, I'll start teaching classes. Well, as that turned out, he didn't. So I started teaching instead. And he left. And that, I guess I can start telling you about how my cheating husband saved my life.
Yes. So you've been married how many times? 4.
Let's not get into all
Oh,
that.
that's great. What's this doesn't have any bearing on. I mean, you're 94 for God's sake. That you know.
Well, my first husband was introduced to me by one of my sorority sisters. He worked with her husband, and it was, very romantic. And so we had an engagement party and all that stuff. And mind you, this is again still during the war. He joined the Coast Guard. He was from San Francisco. Now, I'm alone. He's in, I don't know, Biloxi, Mississippi or someplace. And all of his mail comes to me. Bills, unpaid bills. All sorts of things that I just won't mention. But so I told him I wanted a divorce. I didn't want to be married to a man with a background like this. So anyway, we got a divorce. I married an FBI agent, and he went undercover. I already mentioned that. And there he fell in love with this beautiful, beautiful American girl who was a singer in a nightclub. And I've met her. She was lovely, I understand that. But anyway, so we got divorced, and then I married Bob Black, the father of my children. And then I met Yvonne Rich, and that's how I got my last name. Okay. He worked for Hughes Aircraft, had quite high security papers, or whatever you call it. Went back and forth to the Pentagon and to, I don't know, well, he was in the war business. I mean, that's what Hughes Aircraft did. And he was having an affair with his secretary. Well, this is something. I met with her and told her to find something else to do instead of fooling around with my husband, but that didn't work. And her husband, her name was Millie. Millie's husband also worked for Hughes Aircraft. So I decided to call him. So I called him, identified myself, and said, I wonder if you could try keeping your wife happy at home so she wouldn't be screwing around with my husband. And he said, oh, that's not a love affair. It's just platonic. I said, yeah, play for her and tonic for him or whatever, but I said, would you like me to tell you the names of the motels where they've been spending their lunch hours? Because I had a detective by then. I didn't tell him that, but all of a sudden there's nobody on the other end of the phone. And then another male voice comes on. And I said, what happened to the man I was talking with? He said he fainted. I said, what a marshmallow. No wonder his wife is cheating. Anyway, a little bit early and kind of explained things might be a little bit different tonight. But anyway, we came home, I went to bed, and I'm crying. He said, what are you crying for? I didn't die. I said, when death is not rejection, you are leaving me for another woman. I knew who it was an American Airlines stewardess in Texas. But anyway, I kept track of him pretty good with my ex-FBI experience. Well, I'll interject just one other thing. I did have my telephone, home phone, tapped by a detective that I hired because of my contact with the FBI. And I have those taped recordings of his conversations with, telling about how great his equipment is, and well, anyway, whatever. And those tapes, those recordings are here in the house someplace too. But anyway, back to him. I said, do you have any idea what you're doing, leaving me for another woman? What you're doing to my self-esteem? Well, he didn't care, but anyway, about a week later, I got an invitation from Outward Bound. Are you familiar with Outward Bound? To go on a glacial climb in Peru with crampons and ice axes. I didn't know what a crampon was, and I guess I could picture an ice axe, but anyway, I signed up. I borrowed the $3,000 and signed up. And they are very strict. Outward Bound is very strict. You have to exercise every single day. I had to walk 3 miles every morning. I had to have a thorough physical.
But you were always pretty physically active, right?
Yes, but I had to do that before I went to downtown LA to the law office. You had to do it every single day. And the only doctor I knew, said you have to have this complete physical, was my gynecologist. So I called him and I said, I need to have a complete physical because I want to go on this trip with Outward Bound, and they have to be sure I'm in good shape. So I don't know if you know what a gynecologist does, but he did everything.
Mm-hmm.
I said, can I go? And he said, I'll meet you in recovery and let you know. In the recovery room, he said, you can go, but I want you, as soon as you come back, I want you in surgery, because your body is going through some kind of a cell change that bothers me. So I went on the trip. Incidentally,
How old were you?
59 and a half. I was 60 when I climbed. I've climbed mountains in 4 continents, all after age 60.
Which are they?
South America, Africa, India, and Whitney twice in California. Anyway, I was gone a month. Incidentally, all the women who signed up backed out, so I was the only woman.
Well,
7
you're used
men
to
and
that,
I
huh?
made it to the top.
You're used to being the only woman.
Pardon me?
You're used to being the only woman.
Well, it was interesting. And I don't know, you can certainly picture this when you need to go to the bathroom. There is no portable toilet or anything at the next corner. You have to excuse yourself from the group, but don't go very far because you don't want to fall into a crevasse. And I mean, you just don't have an awful lot of privacy. But anyway, I came home, been gone a month, and all the work had piled up, and so I didn't call. The doctor called me at the law office. I want you in surgery tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. I had cancer of the uterus, but he had detected it so early that he said when he removed it, he had to do 20 cuts to find the cancer. I didn't have to have radiation. I didn't have to have whatever else that other is. Chemo. But I had to see him on a regular basis for examination to be sure that he'd gotten it all. So I am a cancer survivor, but never had to have the radiation or the chemo. So, if Glenn Rich had not left me, if I had not joined Outward Bound and had the surgery that the doctor discovered, the cancer removed, I would be jealous, old, sick, probably dying from cancer at age 60 or something like that, 70 maybe. So he saved my life. My cheating husband saved my life. I have 2 beautiful daughters. I have 2 loving, caring, they would do anything for me. And when I was pregnant, I don't know how much you know about this, but there's a number of days after the day of conception. If you count the days, you know exactly what day you're going to have the baby. Okay, so I told my husband I'm going to have the baby today, so let's get down to, because my doctor was in downtown Los Angeles, so we went into his office, and I said, I'm going to have the baby today, and he said, I better have a look. So anyway, he said, yes, you're right. But he said, it won't be till late tonight, so go take her to lunch, go to the movies or something, and come back later tonight. So that's what we did. Came back, and we had 2 beautiful poodles, and we lived in La Cañada. I said, you have to go home and feed the dogs. He said, I'm not going to go till you take some medication. I'm not going to go. I said, you have to. I said, okay, I'll take the shot or whatever it is I have to take. So he did that. He came back. And the next thing I know, he's wheeling me down the hall on a gurney to my room. And he said, you just had a beautiful baby girl. I said, no, I didn't, for 2 reasons. Number 1, I'm having a boy, and number 2, I haven't had the baby yet. Now, I know that sounds, I don't know, brave or ridiculous or something, but I had had 8 or 9 miscarriages at this point because I wanted 12 boys. So, when you have had that many miscarriages without a doctor, well, one time the doctor said, next time you feel like this is happening, lie down, go to bed, call me, I have to come and find out what the problem is. The problem was I was totally anemic. I didn't realize it, but again, during the war, during the FBI days, I was a member of the half-gallon club or the gallon club or whatever, because with everyone going off in the service and, coming back needing blood. Anyway, we gave blood as often as they'd let us, Anyway, when you have had a miscarriage without a doctor, without any help. And that is pretty painful. Having a baby is just nothing. I mean, people talk about how painful it is to have a baby. Well, again, I didn't feel any pain. And when Pamela came, even 2 years later, it seemed like it was very simple. I think probably I did feel that a little bit. But anyway, my husband Bob Black and I belonged to the Altadena Town and Country Club, and were very active in tennis. We played doubles, he played singles, he was an excellent tennis player. We would go on inter-club matches, Santa Barbara, La Jolla, wherever. We were down at the La Jolla Beach and Tennis Club once on a match on a weekend, and of course, like some people said, what do you call it, the MDTC? I said that's more drinking than tennis club. Oh well. Anyway, we were having dinner at this lovely restaurant in La Jolla, at the La Jolla Beach and Tennis Club, and I don't know, somehow we got on the subject of competition and athletics and strength and so forth. And I said, how many push-ups can you do? And, somebody said, how many can you do? I said, I can do 30. You can do 30 push-ups? Yeah. So, in the restaurant, on the floor, I'm doing push-ups. So, okay, can you do 30 push-ups? Okay, you come on, show me. So, pretty soon I've got the whole tennis group, our side, on the floor doing push-ups. The next day, Lynn Champagne, who was our tennis coach, said to me, after we lost the match, he said, you're responsible for that, getting down on the floor with all those 30 push-ups. They didn't have the strength to hit the ball. So I got accused of that. I mean, I can remember when my mother said, I never thought I'd live long enough to see a man landing on the moon. Well, now, when you think of all the things that have happened since then, because my mother died, 25 years ago, it's just amazing. We are so lucky to be living in this age when so much is happening. I don't know, I think I mentioned I'm not Catholic, but I do say my prayers every night, and I pray to Jesus and my guardian angel. And I absolutely believe there is no hell. I think you make your heaven right here, just the life that you lead and the friends that you have and the things that you do. But I think the minute you die, you become a spirit. Okay. I always tell people, call me whenever you want. If I'm here, I'll talk to you. If I'm not, here's my message. My message for you, if you want to be healthy, happy, and live to be 100, is to tell someone you love them, give someone a hug, and have a glass of wine every day.